Welcome to the deep dive. We take a bunch of sources, boil them down, and pull out the key insights for you.
Basically getting you up to speed fast.
Exactly. And today we're tackling something that sounds simple, but, well, it isn't. Silence.
Mm.
We've got this list. It explores all sorts of places. Some are like hyper-engineered to be soundproof. Others are just naturally remote, really quiet spots on the planet.
Right. So a real mix.
Our job is to kind of unpack this, see what surprising things pop out about what silence really is.
Okay, let's get into it then.
Yeah, okay, let's dive in. Like, what does true silence even sound like? Is that even a thing?
Well, that question, it's actually a great place to start. Because the sources, they show that silence isn't just one thing.
Okay.
It can mean, absolutely no sound. Or it can mean the absence of, say, human sounds. And when that happens, these other quieter sounds, they suddenly appear.
Ah, right. So the experience is totally different depending on which kind it is.
Exactly. Dramatically different.
And the list sort of kicks off by showing us places where silence isn't just there. It's something they have to actively create, using some serious engineering.
Mm-hmm.
First one is Microsoft's Building 87.
Yes, right on their campus in Redmond. So these are what they call anechoic chambers.
Anechoic.
Meaning
No echo.
the material says they use them for testing things, like voice-activated products, hardware, situations where you absolutely have to isolate the sound of the product itself. No outside noise, no reflections.
A perfect pure listening space.
Pretty much.
Okay, and then taking that idea, but like to the absolute extreme, Orfield Laboratories in Minnesota. This is where it gets really interesting, I thought.
Oh, yeah. What the sources really zoom in on with Orfield is just how quiet it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the level they achieve there.
It's not just soundproof, is it? It's more complex.
Right. It's described as like a structure within a structure. It's
Yeah.
encased in layers of steel, foot-thick concrete,
Mm-hmm.
sealed up with these massive vault-style doors.
Wow.
The engineering is just immense.
Sounds like a fortress against sound. And the result, the source says, an average noise level of, what was it, -9 decibels.
-9,
Yeah.
-9 decibels, which is, I mean, technically below the usual threshold of human hearing.
Below zero. How does that even work?
It pushes into the negative range on the scale.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to wrap your head around that level of quiet.
And the effect it has on people, the source mentions visitors often can't handle it for long, like 20 minutes.
Yeah, around 20 minutes seems to be a common limit.
But why? If it's just really quiet, what's so hard about staying there?
Well, that's a really key point from the sources. See, when you take away almost all the external sound, your brain, it's always looking for input, right?
Right.
So it starts focusing inwards. You suddenly become super aware of your own body's sounds.
Like what?
Your heartbeat, really loud, the sound of your own breathing. Some people even report hearing things like their blood circulating.
Whoa. Seriously. And this lack of any outside reference point, combined with suddenly hearing yourself so intensely, it can be really disorienting, almost like sensory deprivation.
Okay, yeah, I could see that.
Our minds just aren't really built for that for extended periods. It
Yeah.
really shows how much we rely on just ambient background noise to feel grounded.
Wow, okay, so that's engineered silence, the absolute kind of unsettling absence of sound made possible by tech.
Mm-hmm.
But the list also takes us to places where quiet isn't engineered, it's just there.
Yeah.
Because humans aren't.
Yeah.
Shifting gears completely from those chambers. Let's look at some natural spots.
Exactly. The sources bring up places like the Kelso Dunes, Mojave Desert,
Right, vast and iconic desert landscape.
and the description really points to its quietness being about isolation. It's harsh out there,
Right.
right? So very few roads, not much air traffic flying over, often not even a lot of wildlife noise.
So the silence comes from just nothing being there.
Yeah.
Especially nothing human, pretty much. Remoteness, lack of human stuff. You might hear wind, maybe sand shifting. But the main thing is the lack of our noise.
Okay. And then Olympic National Park in Washington, mentioned as one of America's quiet parks.
Yeah, the source highlights that it's one of the biggest wilderness areas, certainly in the lower 48 states, that hasn't been sliced up by highways.
Ah, so lack of easy access is key.
Definitely. It naturally filters out a lot of noise pollution. Plus, you've got those huge old-growth forests, coniferous forests. They act like natural sound absorbers.
So dampens sound.
Yeah, it's a different kind of quiet. Not a total void, more like a natural muffling, a filtering out of the human world,
Gotcha. Okay, leaving the U.S. for a bit. Kieldermeyers in Britain.
Right. It's noted as England's largest area of blanket bog.
Blanket bog.
Yeah, these are landscapes that are typically remote, often pretty hard to walk across, so they just haven't been developed much.
So again, remoteness equals quiet.
That's the pattern. Less activity, fewer cars, no machinery, no big crowds, just a naturally peaceful environment.
Now, here's one that seemed odd to me on the list. Zurich, a city. How does that fit into silence?
Huh. Yeah, that's where the definition of silence kind of shifts again, doesn't it?
Seems like it.
'Cause Zurich isn't quiet like a desert, obviously.
Mm.
What the source points out is that, according to some specific index they used, it has the lowest incidence of noise pollution compared to other big cities.
Ah, so it's relative quiet
Mhm.
compared to, say, Delhi, which was listed as having the highest.
Exactly. So this isn't about zero sound. It's about less unwanted sound, less noise, a healthier, less stressful soundscape within a city.
That's a really important difference. Managed sound, not no sound. Okay, back to nature. Landmannalaugar in Iceland.
And it's on that famous Laugavegur hiking trail. The source describes it as having quiet, open roads. It attracts travelers specifically looking for that remote feeling.
So again, remoteness and the type of people who go there contribute to the quiet.
Seems to be the case. People seeking tranquility are maybe less likely to bring the noise with them.
Makes sense. And Makadikadiki pans in Botswana.
Wow.
That sounds completely different.
It really does. One of the world's biggest salt pans. And the source notes this really interesting contrast.
Oh, yeah.
During the dry season, it's incredibly stark, barren, and super quiet, very little life. But then the wet season comes. Total transformation. It attracts tons of wildlife, and people on safari come too. So the soundscape flips completely from almost total silence to being full of nature sounds and human activity.
Wow, so natural quiet isn't always permanent. It can be seasonal.
Definitely. Shows how temporary it can be.
And then maybe the ultimate natural silent place on this list, Antarctica.
Yeah, the source uses the phrase deafening quiet, which is quite poetic, isn't it?
It is, meaning just no human noise at all.
Virtually none.
Yeah.
When you think about how much of the planet is dominated by our sounds,
Yeah.
Antarctica is one of the very few places where that's just absent.
But wait, the material also says you do hear things there, so it's not empty like the anechoic chamber.
Exactly. And this is such a crucial point the sources bring out. In Antarctica, once all the human noise is stripped away, you hear what the description calls the beautiful noise from other creatures and echoes of Mother Nature.
Like what sort of things?
Well, you might hear the wind, the cracking or shifting of ice, maybe distant calls of penguins or seals. The silence isn't the lack of sound. It's the lack of our sound.
Ah, allowing the natural sounds to come through.
Precisely. It reveals this whole other soundscape that's usually completely masked by us.
Okay, one last one. Takbe Hasenote in Mexico.
Right. Described as a hidden cenote, kind of tucked away in the Tulum jungle. You need a guide to get there, apparently known for its peaceful vibe.
So being underground helps.
Yeah, being underground, or in any kind of secluded natural formation like that, it inherently shields you from a lot of external noise. Combine that physical buffer with the, serene visuals of the water, you get this sense of quiet that feels really tied to that specific spot, hidden away.
So looking back at this whole range, we've gone from these super controlled, engineered rooms designed to erase sound, almost disturbingly so,
Right, the kind that can make you feel weird.
all the way to these huge natural landscapes where quiet comes from just being far away from humans, letting you hear the planet itself.
That's really the core contrast, isn't it, that the sources draw out. Silence can be this artificial vacuum, this technical thing that feels almost unnatural to us. Or it can be the natural state of a place that we haven't filled with our noise yet. And in that silence, you realize sound isn't gone. It's just different. It's the sound of the world without us driving the soundtrack.
Yeah, that really makes you think, doesn't it? If we're just constantly surrounded by our own noise, what are we actually missing? After hearing about places with basically zero human sound, like Antarctica, where you suddenly hear nature's own noises, what do you think you would notice most if you were there, really truly listening?
It's a great question. And also, considering that some places engineer silence to remove everything, while others are naturally quiet in a way that reveals sounds. Does silence even mean the same thing everywhere? Something to chew on, maybe?